this pipeline! This pipeline!
A State Department report that outlines the environmental impact of the Keystone XL pipeline is fueling anger among activists. The pipeline would funnel oil over 1,000 miles from Canada's tar sands through the American heartland to the Gulf Coast. This is the long-awaited State Department report that assesses how the pipeline would impact the environment. It states, quote, climate changes are anticipated to occur regardless of any potential effects from the proposed project. It finds that the pipeline would not have a significant impact on greenhouse emissions, but environmentalists are now questioning the motives of the study. Environmental organizations like Friends of the Earth believe the report is riddled with conflicts of interest.
We did some Freedom of Information Act requests to the State Department, as well as did some checking on the internet, and we found that in fact they actually have relationships with at least 5 organizations, including the American Petroleum Institute, who are advocating for the construction of the Keystone XL pipeline.
The pipeline is a political conundrum for President Obama, who has pledged to make progress on climate change. Well, the Obama administration has vowed to put climate change at the top of the agenda, but protesters here say he can turn those words into action by blocking the Keystone XL pipeline. But with energy independence high on the agenda and labor unions saying there's jobs on the line, there's strong political pressure, especially from Republicans, to get moving on the pipeline. It's unclear how much the State Department report will sway the administration's decision. In Washington, Liz Wall, RT.
Hi there, I'm Darren Howard.
And I'm Robert Nisbet.
You're tuned into Video Radio and Radio Free Canada while we take a look at the people who are making a difference.
And we're also going to be looking at some people that shouldn't be making a difference.
Yeah, I know. And that list would probably fill a couple of warehouses, big ones. So the pipelines, of course, they think that there's a hope in hell of it not getting through.
Yeah, but when it comes out that the group that did the environmental impact study actually worked for TransCanada on a previous project, does expose a little bit of what they call it conflict of interest.
Just so happens, but people are wise to it. Nebraska just said, no, we're not going to allow a pipeline to go through, and it kind of throws a wrench into Harper's and Obama's plan to ram through pipelines.
Of course, there's also other things people are complaining about. On February 11th, there was a mass protest, an international one, against the NSA. That was February 11th, the day we fight back.
Check it out.
Now, more than 6,000 websites have teamed up in an online protest against spying by the US government. Popular websites like Reddit, Tumblr and Mozilla have joined the protest, which is called The Day We Fight Back. Around 6,200 websites are each expected to display a banner demanding restrictions on online surveillance. The banner enables US internet users to contact members of Congress directly via email or a computer telephone call link. As for website visitors living outside the US, they are asked to sign a petition in support of the values against mass surveillance. The appeal has already been signed by more than 26,000 people. Press News' Colin Campbell is joining me from Washington to tell us more about this. Colin, just how much is this online protest campaign going to work?
Well, it could receive the ears of many lawmakers who are deciding on legislation regarding the NSA and surveillance and spying. Of course, we've seen these types of demonstrations and these petitions before, and they have had an effect. Right now, there's legislation called the USA Freedom Act. So therefore, it's already on Capitol Hill discussing how the NSA should change its policies. So there are a number of steps being taken legislatively to try to really reform NSA policies.
All right, Press TV's Colin Campbell reporting from Washington. Thanks, Colin.
So what do you think?
Oh, I think it's really cool. It's really nice that the internet community is standing up to these egregious ramifications of this whole NSA spying on the people thing. 6,200 websites participate in that, and I'm sure that Congress got a few calls from people because they had banners on there on who to call in your area.
So this is happening all over the place. People are waking up to the NSA, but so are governments and municipalities.
That's right. In the U.S., several states have introduced legislation to curtail the activities of the overreach of the NSA. Check this out.
Now, a lot of people are upset that the NSA is spying in on Americans listening in our phone calls. They say, whoa, we're not necessarily listening in on all of your calls, but we are getting the metadata. Now, yesterday, we showed you sometimes what they do with metadata, not here in the US, but in Pakistan, Yemen, and Somalia. Sometimes they take the metadata and kill people based off of it. That's what they use for drone strikes. They don't know who's holding the phone. They don't even know if the phone has the right SIM card or not, but they use the metadata to do drone strikes. So, in several different states, including Maryland, where the NSA headquarters happens to be at Fort Meade, they are now considering legislation to literally turn the NSA's lights out. Awesome. And Mediaite explains the bill would cut off all material support, participation, or assistance in any form from the state, its residents, and its businesses to the NSA's Fort Meade headquarters. Now, that could be slightly devastating. First of all, they need a tremendous amount of energy and water to run their servers and to cool their servers. So without that energy and water, they ain't got no servers, and then they can't spy in on us, at least from that location. It's kind of an interesting idea. And U.S. News is reporting about it. They say the bill would also ban the use of the NSA-derived evidence in state courts and prevent state universities from partnering with the NSA on research. State or local officials ignoring the NSA sanctions would be fired. Local governments refusing to comply would lose state grant funds, and companies would be forever barred from state contracts. So they're not playing. Now, Maryland's not the only place that's considering this. 5 different bills have been introduced in 5 different states where the NSA resides and has offices, and they're all considering shutting off the NSA's power. But it's the beginning of the fight, and I like that at least there are some Americans that are still concerned about our Constitution.
So I gotta like it, okay?
Well, it's like there's a global awakening going on. There's kind of a whole consciousness shift.
Yes, you know, and I talk about this all the time, that the people are waking up at the speed of light right now, and what's occurring is people are getting informed about the monumental pile of manure that we're all expected to swallow.
Oh, that's perfect segue.
You see how I fit that in?
That was really
good.
That
was good, eh?
Apparently in France, a farmer who was protesting the tax on horses had a very pungent statement to make.
Check this out.
A French protester with a truck full of horse manure put the dirty in dirty politics Thursday after he drove up to France's parliamentary building and made a sharp political statement all over a Parisian street. The truck driver dumped several tons of steaming fumier, pardon my Google Translate, directly in front of the Bourbon Palace in an apparent protest against French President Francois Hollande. The side of the protester's truck was decorated with a sign reading, "Out with Hollande and the whole political class. Long live the Sixth Republic." The Inquisitor notes that slogan might be a call for revolution. France has been on its fifth republic since 1958. Police arrested the disgruntled driver before he could fully unload the truck, and cleanup crews quickly shoveled the excrement off the streets. Authorities have not identified the protester, but Radio France Internationale reports he was a horse breeder angry about a tax hike on horse riding clubs from 7% to 20%. High taxes have been an unpopular hallmark of Hollande's socialist government. Last October, The Guardian reported Hollande became France's most unpopular president ever after violent protests forced his government to reverse 2 heavy tax plans. And the manure protest comes during a difficult time in Hollande's private life. The French president has spent the past 2 weeks dealing with allegations of an affair with actress Julia Gaillet after a French magazine published photos of Hollande visiting Gaillet's apartment. Authorities are expected to press charges against the protester. For Newsy, I'm Christian Bryant. Multiple sources, a broader view.
So he's calling for a 6th republic in France.
Yes.
And that means that they want to get away from imperial rule. That's how they're considering Hollande, who is the least popular president in French history.
Yes, least popular prime minister in Canadian history. Well, we know who that one is.
Yeah. But also,
we haven't even slammed Harper in the whole thing today.
Well, we can do that in the next segment.
Okay, we'll slam him. And Bear too. So stay tuned because we'll be talking about the Ukraine. However,
in other nations in the European Union, the police are protesting in Portugal over low pay, huge bailouts, and austerity.
So, check it out.
Policemen in Portugal have taken to the streets in the capital, Lisbon, to protest against budget cuts. Several thousand off-duty officers took part in the protest to voice their anger at ongoing pension cuts, which they say represent a risk to the population. The protest was organised by police associations. Leaders of the association say discontent in the security services is running high.
Municipal police in Portugal is a low-cost police. They are the poorest. They live below their standard of human dignity, even though they themselves have to deal with extreme poverty. It will be hard for them to assert their authority and protect the public interest, while they themselves go hungry and live on support from their friends and family.
We are here to fight for our rights, fight for the rights of citizens. The fact that the government is planning to spend less on police for the next budget represents a risk for the population.
The austerity measures are being enacted in Portugal in return for a $105 billion bailout, the debt-heavy country that is received in 2011. The cuts have provoked widespread anger.
So the police, okay?
They're waking up too. They realize that they're part of the 99%.
In the Ukraine, they were holding up mirrors in front of the police. We're going to be talking about that and showing you that coming up in the next segment while we continue talking about protest around the world.
That's right.
Make sure that you get informed, though. Remember, there are firefighters, government employees in all kinds of nations around the world who are standing up against the ridiculousness that's going on, and activism is winning.
Yeah, I think they're throwing off their programming and realize what is actually going on.
So make sure that you question yourself, and make sure that you question our facts. And remember, we don't make commercials that say trust us. I'm Darren Howard.
And I'm Robert Nisbet. And we are supported by absolutely no one.
Yes.
We'll be back after this complete lack of messages.
Wait a second. We're supported by viewers like you.
That's right.
More than 100 communities across Canada came together today to protest pipelines and fight against tar sands expansion.
Hundreds of people gathered on Parliament Hill.
Native and environmental groups are spearheading many of the demonstrations.
Partout au pays, des manifestants ont dénoncé les politiques énergétiques du gouvernement Harper.
Protesters plan to continue to fight until they see change.
We cannot accept any more expansion of pipelines or tanker traffic on our coast.
They have to get through me and you and everybody else.
It's a historic moment and I think a big turning point for Canada.
When people stand together, shoulder to shoulder, as true allies to one another, stand in spirit and stand in purpose, there is nothing that we can't accomplish.
Around 6,000 furious demonstrators formed into Vienna in protest at an annual ball attended by Europe's leading far-right politicians. Holocaust survivors are among the strongest critics of the controversial event. Polly Boyko reports from Austria.
Vienna's Academica Ball courts protest and controversy every year because of the names on its guest list. It's become a gathering of far-right political leaders from across Europe. It's hosted by Austria's Freedom Party, and former guests include Marine Le Pen, France's National Front leader, as well as far-right-wing politicians from Belgium, Germany and Italy. Several thousand protesters hit the city streets demanding that the ball ball is banned once and for all.
It's not acceptable that right-wing people are in the castle of Vienna dancing, celebrating.